Syracuse football appears to be in much better shape to retain one of its best commits in the class of 2026. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're watching on YouTube, you're listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, Syracuse football has a big official visitor coming this weekend. Plus, the Orange added not one, not two, but three more verbal commits in the class of 2026 over the past 48 hours. We'll talk about all of them later on in the show. But first, speaking of the class of 2026, we are going to talk about four-star edge rusher Kamron Wilson, who had a pretty big update regarding Syracuse football earlier today, Thursday, June 19th. We'll talk all about that and more here on today's show. And before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Syracuse football appears to be in much better shape to retain one of its best commits in the class of 2026. I am talking about four-star edge rusher from Miami, Florida, Kamron Wilson. On social media earlier today, he announced that he is no longer officially visiting Florida State this weekend. Now, you may be wondering, Jackson, where's he going to visit? Where's he going this weekend? Glad you asked. He will unofficially visit Syracuse football instead this weekend. That is huge for Syracuse football as far as trying to retain one of its top commits in the class of 2026. Now, before we really dive into it further, I just want to tell you quickly, in case you are unaware, the difference between an official visit versus an unofficial visit. And to keep it simple for you all, for those that do not know, that's okay. An official visit is financed by the school. An unofficial visit is financed by the recruit's family. That's really the difference, okay? Now, Kamron Wilson, we discussed him on Monday, the first podcast of the week, and how he was on Flip Watch. After all, rivals John Garcia mentioned him as one of the 5 big prospects in the class of 2026 that could flip his decision and go to a different school. And Kamron Wilson didn't exactly, stop the rumors or anything like that. It's more than rumors. I mean, there were legitimate predictions from major recruiting analysts out there, like On3 Steve Wiltfong, that had him flipping his commitment. But Kamron Wilson himself did not necessarily deny it. He quote tweeted an eyeballs emoji to John Garcia regarding potentially flipping his commitment. Now, Kamron Wilson has been committed to Syracuse since late March. And as I mentioned, there's been a lot of buzz in him potentially flipping his commitment, and that school has been Nebraska. He officially visited Nebraska on June 6th per 24/7 Sports. And like I mentioned with On3 Steve Wiltfong, there are multiple major recruiting experts who are predicting him to flip his commitment. However, Kamron Wilson, in the time frame that he officially visited Nebraska until last weekend when he officially visited Syracuse, nothing changed regarding his commitment, which was huge for the Orange. He goes on the official visit, appears to have gone well. Other schools have been also pursuing Kamron Wilson. I mean, most of our attention has been with Nebraska, but other schools are involved. He took an official visit with UCF on June 9th. He also took an official visit with USF on June 17th. He was going to visit Florida State, this upcoming weekend, but now that does not appear to be happening. He is going to go back to Syracuse for the second straight weekend. He has not flipped, and it doesn't seem like he is going to flip. Obviously, this is recruiting, and signing day isn't until early December, and that's just the early signing period. You still have many more months after that until the official signing period. But Kamron Wilson actually told 24/7 Sports Insider Mike McAllister that, quote, "Nothing's changed. I'm still committed to Syracuse." And then he went on to say, "I'm 100% locked in." Wilson also told Mike McAllister that they're going to try to play him as a true freshman. And that goes in line with Fran Brown and his coaching staff and what we saw from them in 2024, which is that they are not afraid to play true freshmen. And I think that's a major sell to recruits. Maybe it's not the biggest deal. Some of them are willing to sit out a year, maybe even 2 years before they get on the field, especially if the NIL money is there for them anyway. But for others, it could be more attractive for a school if they can offer you playing time right away. And with Syracuse, they showed that last year. Their words match their actions. Marcellus Barnes, Murad Watson, Yassine Willis, Davian Kerr, and plenty of other true freshmen got significant playing time for the Orange just a season ago. Again, there's still a long ways to go until signing day. But the fact that Kamron Wilson, a week after his official visit, is now saying that he's 100% locked in with Syracuse football, the fact that he's canceling an official visit with Florida State to go back to Syracuse for an unofficial visit, I think it's safe to say that, at least for right now, Kamron Wilson, his words, not mine, is 100% locked in to Syracuse football. And I have to commend the staff here for a moment because, again, we have discussed this, how, yeah, we want to land Calvin Russell. He's a 5-star wide receiver, and that would really give Syracuse, in all likelihood, a top 30 class. But like I also have told you all, and feel free to agree or disagree with me in the comment section below, you got to retain your top talent too, that you've already recruited. And so far in the class of 2026, could change, but as of right now, Syracuse football only has 2 decommits in the entire class per 24/7 Sports. And let's talk about the two decommits from the class of 2026. Number one is Isaiah Williams. He's actually one of the best linebackers in the country. He was initially committed to Syracuse football. He's currently with Ole Miss. But here's the deal. Isaiah Williams has been committed to 5 different schools, including Syracuse and Ole Miss. So it's not just Syracuse that has lost him. It's 3 other schools, and we'll see if Ole Miss is able to keep Isaiah Williams. Translation, I'm not holding that against Syracuse because nobody else has seemed to be or has been able to keep Isaiah Williams so far. The other decommit for Syracuse in this class of 2026 is Zayden McDonald, who flipped to Stanford, and he told Mike McAllister, our 24/7 Sports Insider, that it was because of the education. Now, I'm a Syracuse graduate from the Newhouse School, studied broadcasting there. I actually got this job while I was a second semester senior. That was all the way back in February of 2024. It's a great education. I'm sure many of you all who watch and listen to this podcast are Syracuse alums. I'm sure that some of you all watch and listen are actually going to Syracuse in the fall. Having said that, it's a great school. It's not Stanford as far as education. Am I really going to sit here and penalize Syracuse if someone is saying, you know what, I want to go to Stanford because of the educational opportunities? I get all the stuff that Fran Brown has done, but Stanford is universally recognized as one of the most prestigious universities around the country. It's like top 5, maybe even top 3. It's one of the hardest schools to get into. Really valuable to have that Stanford degree. So I don't really hold it against Syracuse that they were unable to keep Zayden McDonald because you can't offer a Stanford education. Oh well, it is what it is. So those are your only 2 decommits. That's pretty good for Syracuse. So overall, it looks like they're in solid shape to keep four-star edge rusher Kamron Wilson. We'll continue to monitor it for throughout the summer and over the course of the regular season, but I'm feeling much better now about Syracuse and keeping one of their top recruits in the class of 2026. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you think that Syracuse will be able to maintain their current commit with Kamron Wilson, comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, coming up, we'll talk about more verbal commits in the class of 2026. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we still got plenty more to discuss here on this podcast. The Orange have a big official visitor scheduled to come to campus this weekend. Plus, we're about to talk about how Syracuse landed not one, not two, but three more verbal commitments over the past 48 hours. But first, you've made it this far in the podcast so far. If you could just do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And also, shout out to those for continuing to subscribe to Locked On Syracuse each and every day. Thank you all so much. You all are truly the best. So let's get into some of the commits over the past 48 hours, because Syracuse football picked up three of them. That's pretty good, right? First, they got Corday Houston, Zikhere Leaks, and Tyrell Grant. I have not had the chance to record any podcasts discussing the latest verbal commits, but just so you all are aware, they've happened over the course of 48 hours. Okay, so I think we're right on the border as far as timeliness, but I thought, hey, in case you're not as tuned in, that's okay. I can update you. And let's talk about each one of them. Corday Houston is 6'3", 265 pounds. He is a defensive lineman. He is from Dallas, Texas. He is rated as a 3-star recruit on 24/7 Sports, just outside of the top 100 overall defensive linemen in the nation on there. But ESPN gave their evaluation very recently of Corday Houston, and they were higher on him. He's still a 3-star over there, but they actually have him as a top 60 overall defensive lineman in the country. And Houston chose Syracuse over a number of big-name schools, including Miami, LSU, Texas A&M. Cal actually had, I think, a few predictions to land him, but Syracuse ultimately snuck in there, and they got Corday Houston. He describes himself as someone who's really versatile. He can play anywhere along the defensive line. So that's a solid recruit for Syracuse football to pick up. Next up, you got Zikhere Leaks, a 6'2", 190-pound defensive back from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He also plays wide receiver, but Syracuse football is apparently recruiting him as a defensive back. 3-star prospect on 24/7 Sports. I'm not sure he's rated anywhere else on the other major recruiting services, ESPN, On3, Rivals. He chose Syracuse over UConn, Buffalo, Temple, and others. And he's also a track and field athlete. Again, it is not uncommon to get a lot of recruits that also do track and field, because football players playing Division I are freak athletes. And finally, you got Tyrell Grant, a 6'1", 190-pound defensive back from Virginia. I also believe he plays quarterback. Currently not yet rated on any of the major recruiting services, but I imagine that now he is actually committed to a power conference program that we will see over the course of the next couple of days, weeks, months, that he will eventually get rated by those athletes. Because he's not yet rated yet, I imagine that he will come in as a 3-star recruit. And actually, Syracuse gave Tyrell Grant his first power conference offer. And here's the advantage of that, right? Because you may be sitting here saying, oh, why is that such a big deal? It's only one power conference offer. I mean, why are you freaking out about this prospect? I just want to be very clear here. The reason why it's important is because if his recruitment starts to heat up, because think of it this way, he's committed now to Syracuse football. Hold up. Other schools might want to get a little look at him. Hey, what does Syracuse see in him? He's not really rated on any of the major recruiting services, not that they may pay attention to them anyway, but he's not yet rated, doesn't have a lot of scouting behind him, but somehow Syracuse is the only power conference team that offered him. So what do they see in him? And it causes other schools to look around and say, what about this Tyrell Grant? Can he play for us? But just keep in mind that Syracuse was there first, and Syracuse gave him the first chance. They believed in him first. So if his recruitment doesn't pick up, that's fine. I mean, you have 105 scholarships you got to fill anyway. If his recruitment does start to heat up, then Syracuse can simply say, hey, Tyrell Grant, we were first. We believed in you from day one. We gave you your first offer. You should stick with us. We believe in you. All that, right? So overall, those are the 3 most recent verbal commits for Syracuse football. I am recording this on Thursday, June 19th at 3:35 p.m. Eastern. I can almost assure you that, knowing my luck, there will probably be another verbal commit in the next couple of hours by the time you're watching or listening to this podcast. So I apologize because I'm recording this before you are actually watching or listening to it. That's just how it is. Now, as far as where Syracuse ranks overall in the class of 2026, they're holding steady. Syracuse's 2026 class is up to 21 verbal commitments. That's tied for 6th in the nation. Actually, Syracuse led the country a year ago in the amount of verbal commitments they had out of high school. I believe it was either 35 or 36 players. The class, it remains top 30 overall nationally, currently sitting at 28th overall to be exact on 24/7 Sports. But I wanted to dive deeper into those team recruiting rankings and look at some of the schools that are ahead of them, look at some of the schools that are behind them. And here's the reality, okay? There are a lot of big-time schools that are behind Syracuse football right now in the class of 2026. Tennessee, Alabama, Oregon, Michigan, and plenty of other big-time programs currently ranked behind Syracuse in the class of 2026. The odds are very low that those schools are going to end up finishing behind Syracuse in recruiting. That includes if Syracuse goes out and gets 5-star wide receiver Calvin Russell. Because it's Tennessee, Bama, Oregon, Michigan. As they're going to continue to get more commits. And as a result, they are going to cruise past Syracuse football in all likelihood in recruiting. So am I telling you that Syracuse is screwed and they can't have a top 30 class? Not necessarily. Not at all. I'll tell you what really the key is now for Syracuse to maintain a top 30 class in the nation, which I think is a pretty fair goal for Fran Brown and company now that this is their 3rd recruiting year. You got to try and out-recruit some of the schools that are maybe also outliers in that top 30. Because there are some schools ahead of them like Louisville. I mean, Louisville is a good program, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, hey, can Syracuse on any given year out-recruit Louisville? Maybe. They could try, right? You got Louisville, Pitt, Arizona State, Cal, and Minnesota that are all ahead of Syracuse football currently in recruiting. So, yes, the big-time schools might pass Syracuse, but if Syracuse can then land, hey, one of the guys that we're going to talk about coming up in Tedarius Hughes, and or they can land Calvin Russell, they can soar past some of those other schools and maintain a top 30 class. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments section below right now. Do you think that Syracuse football can have a top 30 class in the class of 2026? I'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Now, coming up, we will discuss a big official visit coming this weekend for Syracuse football. That's coming up next on Locked On Syracuse. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Syracuse football's official visit list this weekend has one major player on it. It's pretty light as far as volume per 24/7 Sports. There are only 3 players scheduled to come to Syracuse as of right now this weekend, but the headliner is 4-star composite defensive back Tedarius Hughes, who is currently a Florida State commit. And his recruiting journey is pretty interesting because 2 weeks ago, we had on 24/7 Sports Syracuse insider Mike McAllister, and he broke the news to us all that Tedarius Hughes was no longer officially visiting Syracuse a couple of weeks ago. That was the weekend of June 6th. And Mike followed up that statement by saying he also contacted Tedarius Hughes to see if he would come and visit Syracuse any other day, any other week. And Hughes at that time did not get back to him. So we did not know whether or not he was going to come to Syracuse or not. And you have to figure if Tedarius Hughes, who is already committed to Florida State verbally, if he's not going to officially visit Syracuse, then Syracuse really doesn't have much of a chance to flip him. They have to get him on campus in order to have a shot, right? The good news is that if you check the 24/7 Sports website and the list of official visits coming up, you'll see that Tedarius Hughes is actually scheduled to come to Syracuse tomorrow, June 20th. That's what the website is saying. Now, it's possible that the website could be wrong, but I've also looked at a couple of publications online from Yahoo Sports, and I think he also officially visited Nebraska, ironically, and they were saying on there that he is supposed to visit Syracuse on June 20th. The other schools that are involved with Tedarius Hughes, I mentioned Nebraska. He took an official visit there actually on Tuesday, June 17th. But Miami is another school to keep an eye on, an official visit with them on May 30th. And he would be a massive commit for Syracuse football. He would be the top defensive back in the class of 2026 for Syracuse football, and arguably their best recruit in the 2026 class, because Tedarius Hughes is a 4-star recruit on ESPN. He is a 4-star recruit on On3 and a 4-star recruit on Rivals. He is a 3-star recruit on 24/7 Sports. The reason why I mention that is because Tedarius Hughes is a 4-star recruit on 3 of the 4 major recruiting services. As of right now, Syracuse has 4 4-star recruits in the class of 2026, but all of those 4-star recruits are 4-star recruits on just 2 of the 4 major recruiting services. That's still significant. You're still talking about guys who are borderline top 300 overall in the country, depending on what recruiting service you would like to use. Tedarius Hughes has 3 instead of 2. So you can make an argument that he would be the best player in Syracuse's 2026 class so far. And the odds of Syracuse having a top 30 class overall in the country go significantly up if Tedarius Hughes ends up flipping from Florida State to Syracuse. Not to mention, you'll weaken an in-conference rival in Florida State. So hopefully it's true what 24/7 Sports is saying. But as of right now, it looks like he is visiting Syracuse football tomorrow, Friday, June 20th. So that's good for Syracuse. The other 2 players that are supposed to schedule or that are on the schedule to officially visit, you got Amir Clark, a 3-star defensive lineman from Kissimmee, Florida. He has also visited Georgia Tech. That was on May 30th, Rutgers on June 6th, and Boston College on June 13th. He is rated just outside the top 125 nationally among defensive linemen per 24/7 Sports. And then he got Shea Baker, a kicker who is not yet rated, and I don't see any other official visits other than with Syracuse football, but I don't believe Syracuse right now has a kicker in its class of 2026, but they do have a punter. The number 1 punter in the nation is committed to Syracuse as of right now. So that just about does it with all the recruiting news over the past couple of days, and obviously the most recent news with Kamron Wilson being 100% locked in with Syracuse football. As far as what is coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future, we got Poll Friday tomorrow. Who will lead Syracuse football in receiving yards this upcoming season? I also want to bring your attention to the football recruiting dead period, which will occur from June 23rd to, I believe, July 31st. For those that don't understand the football recruiting dead period, this doesn't mean that football recruiting stops. So we're still going to talk about football recruiting here on this podcast. But what this means is that college coaches cannot have face-to-face conduct from that specific period of time, which is, again, June 23rd to July 31st, whether it's on campus or off campus. No face-to-face contact, but they can still talk via phone, text, email, social media. You want to use a bird, you want to use an owl like they do in Harry Potter, they can still do that, of course. And obviously, recruits can still commit verbally during that time. I mean, we'll talk about Calvin Russell and his verbal commitment date on July 5th when that occurs. All right. So that's what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse, and also the news about the football recruiting dead period coming up here in just a matter of a couple of days. So that just about does it for this episode of Locked On Syracuse. And thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of the day. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Portal Show with football recruiting expert Brian Smith, who's got the latest rumors and signings each and every day. You can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal Podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.